Mass timber construction and volumetric modular construction have many parallels, many similarities in terms of how they're designed and constructed. However, to date, we have not seen much of a crossover, meaning the use of mass timber construction in volumetric modular applications here in the US. Why is that the case? Today's video is going to break down that topic, explore the use, challenges, and benefits associated with using mass timber in modular applications, and understand what is the future of this type of construction here in the US and beyond. Well, hey folks, welcome back to another Timber Talk Tuesday. I'm Ricky McLean with Woodworks, and as you heard in the introduction, today's video is going to focus on the use of mass timber construction in volumetric modular applications. Now, I recently had a chance to sit down with Mark Gaglione of Elliston, a contractor located in the Ontario area who's been developing and using structural steel volumetric modular applications for a number of years, but more recently started looking at the use of mass timber in volumetric modular applications. Now, the first question that I asked Mark was surrounding this concept that we're using mass timber quite a bit in North America. We're using modular construction, but to date there has not been much crossover. However, in Europe, there is some use of mass timber in volumetric modular applications. So, simply put, why is that the case? Why have we not seen more use of mass timber in modular applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think people who have been involved in volumetric modular know it can be a challenging business model, especially the part where you're trying to make it cost competitive with conventional construction. You know, there's some things that are inherent factors with volumetric modular that can add cost to construction that you have to overcome in some way if you want it to be cost competitive with a conventional methodology on site. You know, some of those things you can think of, you know, we build a box in a factory and ship it out to site. And one of the results of that is there's some redundant material. You know, every box has a floor and a ceiling. So when you stack them, you have duplicated material. There's a lot of double walls. So there's a bit of material redundancy. There's an whole additional transportation step. Everything has to come to the factory, and then everything goes from factory to the site, which is an additional step that you wouldn't normally have. Plus, there's the added cost of kind of the overhead of operating a large volumetric facility in general. So these are kind of headwinds in the face of volumetric modular in general. And mass timber itself, you know, sometimes gets the perception on conventional construction that it can add a small premium on the cost front. The base material could add a premium to construction. So adding that into the mix of an already quite challenging construction methodology in volumetric construction is, you know, certainly one of the things that holds mass timber out of volumetric modular. You know, the base material comes at a premium cost, and so what you're seeing is in Europe, you know, the European market has a much longer history with mass timber in general and much deeper adoption into different types of building types that haven't been fully adopted here in North America. And so what we are doing, you know, through this R&D project and hopefully through commercializing and building projects is we're emulating some of the work that's been done over in Austria and Germany, and kind of making our own spin on it and making it our own kind of North American production scale version of mass timber modular. So, you know, what we saw in conventional adoption of mass timber was the Europeans were doing it for like a decade or two before us, and we're seeing similarly with the modular side of that is that there was an earlier adoption in Europe and kind of a trailing adoption as you know, the North Americans kind of grapple with ways to overcome this cost competitive barrier.
Now, thinking about the common types of structural framing materials used in a volumetric modular application, thinking wood studs, structural steel framing, those are all commodity products. Mass timber, however, is not a commodity product. What types of benefits and challenges does this create when using a non-commodity product in a volumetric modular application? And that's what I asked Mark next.
Yeah, certainly it creates there's things on both sides of that trade-off, definitely. Some of the benefits, and some of the things that led us to mass timber initially, remember we were coming from steel, like heavy gauge steel, was that we were trying to arrive at a lower carbon solution, uh, which led us to mass timber. But in terms of running a fabrication facility, there's some interesting downstream benefits of mass timber over like a light wood frame and over steel, in that we're trying to leave surfaces exposed. And so you can imagine if your wall becomes like a thin CLT panel in a fabrication environment, that's a single operation to set the wall panel. And then what you removed by doing that is the drywall step later on, the mudding step, the taping step, the sanding, the painting step. And so in a production environment where you have like a flow of activities, what we're trying to do through mass timber, and again, to overcome some of the barriers of the base material cost, is to remove as much as possible out of the downstream activities. And so the result is we've removed approximately half of the drywall out of all of the modules. The fire rating details are significantly easier because although we're paying a premium for this base material, it's coming inherently with a fire rating. And so we don't have to do additional steps in a factory and add additional materials, fire caulking, drywall, mudding, and taping to achieve the fire rating in a lot of locations. And another thing that when you're in a manufacturing environment, one of the big challenges comes down to like the piece count. You can imagine like a commodity product like a dimensional lumber. When you try to frame floors, frame ceilings, frame all the walls, it adds up to a few hundred pieces, maybe 500 pieces or something in total, maybe a bit less. Our mass timber modular system, we've squeezed it under 20 pieces. And so the trade-off that we're balancing is obviously labor costs and piece count for like order of magnitude reduced piece count and significantly less labor in the factory, both at the chassis assembly and downstream into the finishing stages. And the result of it is like, not only do you save some steps along the way, you also result in like a premium aesthetic, because you're now kind of leaving surfaces exposed. And so, this might not have been possible to take this approach 5 or 10 years ago. But apart from our factory, the mass timber supply chain domestically in North America is really maturing in general. And so what we're doing is taking advantage of an already existing really high-tech supply chain. We can have a variety of suppliers supplying the plant. They're doing the CNCing, they're doing the finishing stages for us. And these kind of 14 pieces arrive on the back of a single truck and get erected outside the assembly line. So, there is a large trade-off between cost, schedule, labor in the plant. And so what we're doing, through a number of mock-up exercises is trying to climb that learning curve and really zero in on where we can improve and remove any kind of modular tax that is inherent with the product.
Not only is mass timber not a commodity product, it's also a prefabricated product for a specific location on a specific job site. Now, spinning that forward into modular construction, each mass timber element, panel, beam, etc., will be fabricated off-site at the mass timber manufacturer's facility for a specific location within a given module, so that the modular manufacturer is usually not doing that custom CNC work. Contrast that with the common structural framing materials in modular construction nowadays, where a lot of times those elements are custom fabricated at the modular manufacturer's facilities, whether it's just simply cutting studs to length or whether it's cutting openings in an exterior wall for windows and doors. So that's what I asked Mark next. How does that contrast of elements being prefabricated offsite coming to the manufacturer's facility for installation in a module already set versus that work happening at the modular manufacturer's facility? How does that impact the time and cost?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you drop the piece count significantly, like the complexity in general of like the chassis alone kind of follows and the complexity drops. It's still an intricate chassis, but what we're doing is we're taking offline the complexity. So there's still like fancy CNC details and very specific notches that would be, they're no big deal for a CLT fabricator to fabricate. But we've kind of outsourced the complexity on some of the fabrication so that when it does arrive, it's 100% ready to go. And like you said, there's now only, a dozen or so pieces versus, an inventory where we'd have to kind of keep flushing an inventory through of like 100 or a couple hundred pieces, which would, then the complexity goes up, right back through design. You need design drawings for all those pieces. You need shop drawings for all those pieces. You need bill of materials. You need purchase orders. You need people handling them all. And so, while the weight of our pieces is like a lot more because they're huge pieces, the actual like complexity that gets kind of pulled through the business is arguably lower, and that ripples through as we start removing walls and drywall and just leaving things exposed. Ideally, we arrive at quite a simple, elegant design, and that translates to an efficient workflow upstream. So these are all things that we're kind of working alongside the design of the boxes itself and the whole system. We have to work on like the business design, like the actual processes to put in place to deliver on these projects.
Now, last I asked Mark to get out his crystal ball and take a look 5 to 10 years from now. Simply put, where do we see the mass timber modular industry? Do we see a significant uptick in use? Is there a particular size or scale of project that is best suited for mass timber modular construction?
Yeah, we're optimistic, certainly with our own system, but we're hoping to start out small. We're hoping to take quite a measured approach to scaling up the system. It's sometimes tempting to go big and try to produce 1,000 modules, but because we're early days into mass timber modular, what we'd like to do is do a demonstration project at a smaller scale and scale up slowly as we iterate through design optimizations. When we built the first 3 mock-ups that are complete now, we came out of it with a laundry list of design improvements that we're going to bake into version 2 of the system. And so what we'd like to do is kind of tighten these feedback loops, at least at first, but as we really dial in the system, over the next year or so, call it, and then afterwards, when we have like a really robust system, a tested assembly that's been deployed, into the field, we'd like to develop like a scalable fabrication approach where you don't need a large complicated factory to put this together. It can be something that anyone can do with kind of readily available material, and at that point, we hope to see at the same time we're drilling into our design and trying to kind of remove any kind of cost barriers there is to mass timber modular, and once we kind of hopefully achieve some cost competitiveness, we'll kind of deploy it hopefully at scale, and others could as well, we hope. And the applications, I should say, for modular in general, whether it's mass timber or not, are largely short span applications, right? Because we have these boxes, we're constrained by some shipping dimensions. And so, you can think of things like housing of all sorts, affordable housing, condo, rental, student residences, hotels, motels, things of that nature are well suited for modular. And in a fabrication environment, what we really look for is repetition and being able to kind of deploy a similar kit of parts kind of parametrically across many sites. That's when you can kind of really unlock potential of this approach of construction.
Well, there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Mark. It is going to be really interesting to track, follow, and be involved in the design of mass timber modular projects going forward. Reach out to us here at Woodworks. We're a free resource, and we're here to answer any questions that you have on the nuts and bolts of mass timber modular design, or just if you want to know more about this topic and others in general. Well, I thank you for making it to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.